The History Boys is a play by British playwright Alan Bennett. The play premiered at the Royal National Theatre in London on the 18th of May 2004. Its Broadway debut was on the 23rd of April 2006 at the Broadhurst Theatre, where 185 performances were staged before it closed on the 1st of October 2006. Written by Alan Bennett. Characters: Headmaster Hector, Irwin, Mrs. Lintott, Akthar, Crowther, Dakin, Lockwood, Posner, Rudge. Scripts: Timms. Date premiered: the 18th of May 2004. Place premiered: Royal National Theatre, London. Original language: English. Subject: an unruly bunch of bright, funny boys in pursuit of sex, sport and a place at university. Genre: comedy drama. Setting: 1980s. The play won multiple awards, including the 2005 Laurence Olivier Award for Best New Play and the 2006 Tony Award for Best Play. Plot. Edit. The play opens in Cutler's Grammar School, Sheffield, a fictional boys' grammar school in the north of England. Set in the mid-late 1980s, the play follows a group of history pupils preparing for the Oxford and Cambridge entrance examinations under the guidance of three teachers: Hector, Irwin, and Lintott, with contrasting styles. Hector, an eccentric teacher, delights in knowledge for its own sake, but his ambitious headmaster wants the school to move up the academic league table and hires Irwin, a supply teacher, to introduce a rather more cynical and ruthless style of teaching. Hector is discovered sexually fondling a boy, and later Irwin's latent homosexual inclinations emerge. The character of Hector was based on the schoolmaster and author Frank McEachran, 1900–1975. Headmaster: Felix Armstrong, headmaster. Hector: English and General Studies teacher. Irwin: history teacher, brought in as a special coach. Mrs. Dorothy Lintott: history teacher. Akthar: pupil, of Asian ancestry, Muslim. Crowther: pupil, acts as a hobby. Dakin: pupil, handsome, object of Posner's and Irwin's affection. Lockwood: pupil, strong opinions. Posner: pupil, youngest, gay and Jewish. Rudge: pupil, better known for athletic skills than for intelligence. Scripps: pupil, Anglican, plays piano. Timms: pupil, joker, overweight. Director on Irwin's television program, a small role. Irwin is said to be modeled after Niall Ferguson. 3. The play includes several non-speaking roles. Makeup woman, production team on Irwin's television show. 3 or 4 unidentified MPs spoken to by Irwin in opening scene. Other male pupils. Fiona: headmaster's secretary, object of Dakin's affection. Does not appear on stage in the published text, but was seen in filmed projections featuring Rio by Duran Duran during the original production. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_history_boys #:text equals headmaster% 20 opening parenthesis Felix% 20 Armstrong, the%20 original%20 production. The History Boys play. The History Boys follows a group of students and teachers at an all-boys English grammar school in the 1980s. The boys have been placed in a class designed to get them into either Oxford or Cambridge, as they all show substantial potential. Hector, the English teacher, and Mrs. Lintott, the history teacher, are central to the text. Mrs. Lintott is a traditional and straightforward teacher. However, Hector is more unusual. He is eccentric and likes to teach in a way that actively engages the students. Hector does not believe in traditional exams, instead encouraging his students to focus on using their academic knowledge to help them in their future lives. It is also bluntly stated that Hector molests his older male students. He will regularly select one of them to take a motorcycle ride with him in order to do this. Uncomfortably, all the students seem to accept this because of their respect for Hector. The school's headmaster decides that the boys need extra help to get into university and, therefore, hires Irwin, a recent Oxford graduate, to act as a teaching assistant. When it is revealed to Hector that he and Irwin will share classes, he becomes infuriated, feeling he is being usurped and disrespected. Irwin teaches the boys how to stand out in their university entrance exams. He encourages them to explore unusual ideas as long as they can solidly back them up. This will help them to catch the examiner's attention. Posner, one of the students, comes to Irwin in confidence to discuss his sexuality. Posner believes he may be gay. He has a romantic interest in one of the other boys, Dakin, but Dakin is insistent that he is heterosexual. In reality, both Erwin and Dakin feel an attraction to each other that neither will admit. One day, the headmaster witnesses Hector being inappropriate with one of the boys on his motorcycle. He calls Hector to his office and orders him to take early retirement when the current school term is up. The headmaster has been looking for a reason to get rid of Hector for some time, as he dislikes his teaching methods. The two men agree that until the end of term, Hector will share all his classes with Erwin. He is also forbidden from going on motorcycle rides with his students anymore. In the second act, the play jumps forward a few years into the future. Erwin has become a successful television journalist and is shown to be in a wheelchair. He is visited by Posner on his lunch break from work. Posner questions him on his relationship with Dakin when they were still in school. This irritates Erwin, and he leaves, refusing to answer. The play then moves back to its original time period of the early 1980s. Hector and Erwin are teaching a class together, making their starkly different methods apparent. The class is learning about the Holocaust, which Hector believes should not be written about in an exam out of respect for the victims. However, Erwin argues that it should be treated as the historical event that it is. The entrance exams are fast approaching, with the school carrying out mock interviews for the boys. One weekend, they all go to either Oxford or Cambridge to take their exams, with every boy in the group successfully being admitted to their university of choice. Upon returning, Dakin has a conversation with Erwin. He has uncovered the fact that Erwin has been lying about being an Oxford graduate, and Erwin admits to this. Dakin then flirtatiously asks Erwin out for a drink, which Erwin hesitantly agrees to. Dakin also dislikes how the headmaster has treated Hector, who he still has a great deal of respect for. He has found out that the headmaster often harasses his secretary, Fiona. Dakin uses this information to blackmail the headmaster into allowing Hector to keep his job. After Hector hears the news, Dakin wants to share a motorcycle ride in celebration. However, the headmaster forbids this, ordering Erwin to ride with Hector instead. The motorcycle crashes while driving, killing Hector and leaving Erwin permanently bound to a wheelchair. The cause of the accident is never revealed. The play ends at Hector's funeral, where all the boys remember him fondly, despite all that has happened. Mrs. Lintott reveals that the majority of the group have gone on to be very successful, although Posner leads an isolated existence and Timms has turned to drugs. One of the play's major questions is about the general purpose of knowledge and education. Are they meant to be practically useful, to help students pass examinations and be quantifiably successful? Or are they meant to inspire personal growth and wisdom, and to help students through painful experiences? On the furthest end of this question is the grammar school's headmaster, who sees education in utilitarian terms. He wants his students to attend prestigious universities, notably Oxford and Cambridge, in order to raise the profile of the school that he runs and thus increase its wealth and prestige. The headmaster brings in Erwin, a young, recent university graduate, to give the students more polish as they prepare to compete for spots at Oxford and Cambridge. Erwin then teaches the boys to take unconventional positions on historical questions, even if they don't believe in the truth of their argument. Erwin thinks that this will make them more competitive candidates for universities. As Rudge puts it, Erwin encourages them to say that Stalin was a sweetie, because this argument will set them apart. The play ultimately shows that Erwin's version of thinking for yourself is shallow. Recognizing the conventional argument and then arguing the opposite side doesn't ultimately involve much original thought. It's a way of appearing smart or funny, but not of truly grappling with a text or a historical event. Erwin doesn't make a career in academia, he moves on to journalism, entertainment, and politics. The other side of these issues is Hector, a teacher who represents the old guard of British education. Hector sees knowledge as a way to aid personal growth and help soothe emotional pain. Hector teaches the boys to memorize texts by heart, as he wants them to save the lessons of poetry and literature for life's inevitable hardships. Hector continually reminds the boys that Oxford and Cambridge will not necessarily make them happy. After you achieve a certain marker of success, life still continues on. With the motorcycle accident that leaves Erwin crippled and Hector dead, the play ultimately comes down on the side that knowledge and education are most important as ways to deal with life's cruel randomness. Despite this, Mrs. Lintott observes that some of Hector's students go on to lead unfulfilled lives, guided by a misplaced sense that art can save them. Posner, the character who most fully adopts Hector's stance, ends up lonely, and with much less material success than his classmates. Hector's final words at the end of the play, words that come from beyond the grave, or that the boys should pass the parcel. That's sometimes all you can do. Take it, feel it and pass it on. He knows that the game of success is small and inadequate in the face of our ultimate mortality. The point is to use literature and history as ways to more fully savor life. Like Hector's lessons, the play aims to leave the audience with more tools to answer their own questions about the purpose of life. The History Boys shows that history is ultimately random, both in terms of what happens, and in terms of what we choose to remember. Linked to this theme is the question of whether or not it is important to search for truth in the study of history. Irwin tells the boys that it is not important to be truthful in their arguments, as long as their arguments are unique and interesting. Scripps says at one point that in Irwin's classes, truth is just another point of view. In his scene as a TV journalist, Irwin then demonstrates the random way that we remember history by showing that, when visiting an old abbey, people tend to be most interested in monks' ancient toilet paper. Yet Irwin's way of dismissing absolute historical truth sometimes leads to morally questionable results. This becomes most pointed in the boys' discussion of the Holocaust, when Irwin suggests that the boys should put the event in context or proportion. Posner and Hector object to this, saying that such an argument diminishes the suffering and horror of the event in a way that is unacceptable. At times, the characters step out to narrate in the midst of the action, and this effectively dramatizes the difference between the way events feel as they are happening in real time, and the way that we remember them historically. As the scenes unfold, they seem to have many possible meanings and interpretations. When a character steps out to narrate, they often add nuance to what we're seeing, making us feel that we've come closer to the truth of the matter. But these narrative asides also break up the emotional trajectory of the scene. A story told after the fact cannot fully encompass the emotions and dynamics felt in the present. In the end, the play most poignantly demonstrates the randomness of history and of life with the motorcycle accident. Different characters narrate this event after the fact, and we don't see it occur on stage. Scripps notes that we don't know the factual truth of the story, but that Irwin has taught him to never accept a neat narrative. The play ends with this idea that there is no single historical truth. Life is always more complex, both emotionally and factually, than the historical version of it can be. The boys in the play are coming of age both intellectually and sexually, and these two growing up processes are often linked in the History Boys. In one scene, Scripps and Dakin compare Dakin's seduction of Fiona with the progress of World War II. Later, Dakin concludes that history is fucking. The play raises major questions about the purpose of education, so these comments make us wonder, too, about the purpose of sex. Is it a realm of personal fulfillment? Or does it serve as a way to gain certain levels of success in society? A major plot point in the play is the revelation that Hector gropes the boys when they ride behind him on his motorcycle. When the headmaster finds out about this, Hector starts to defend himself by saying that the transmission of knowledge is necessarily erotic, further tying these two themes together. The headmaster shuts him down, however, saying that his activity isn't normal. This moment illustrates the ways that the boys will be asked to curtail their sexual desires to fit within certain societal norms as they grow up. It also shows, however, that Hector's vision of sex and knowledge has grave shortcomings. He sees them as ways to move towards personal fulfillment, but in acting on this idea, he has crossed a social boundary that is meant to protect his students, and he ruins his own career. The play frequently deals with themes of homosexuality, and Bennett himself is gay. Hector is married to a woman, but his molestation of the boys suggests that he is repressing and attracting to men, and his friend and colleague Mrs. Lintott also suggests this. Posner is attracted to Dakin, and wonders if this is just a phase, but ultimately decides that it is not. Irwin, too, is attracted to Dakin. Their homosexual attractions place these characters outside the realm of societal normalcy, and lead to feelings of loneliness and frustration for them. The play ultimately uses sex and sexuality to illustrate the boys' processes of maturation, and to show that becoming adults requires working either within or against a set of prescribed rules for behavior. Conformity often leads to loneliness and lack of fulfillment, but society also punishes those who rebel against its rules. Adulthood requires that the boys balance these various demands, while also reaching towards a state of greater self-knowledge. The hope of getting into Oxford or Cambridge is a driving force in the play. The headmaster wants it badly for his students, and the students want it, too. Only Hector seems to understand that a prestigious university won't be the culmination of his students' lives and happiness, yet he doesn't have all the answers, either. Hector admits to Erwin that part of him wants the boys to compete, and Mrs. Lintott suggests that Hector's teaching prepares the boys for their ultimate failure, rather than trying to guide them towards success. Similarly, Dakin argues at one point that literature is actually about losers, who are compensating for something. Though he is being glib, Dakin's argument also rings true, given the experiences of the adults in the play. All of them have ended up teaching at the school after a life that is in some ways marked by failure. Hector has suppressed his sexuality, and is married to a woman. Mrs. Lintott has an ex-husband who told her lies, and she's now relegated to being a lower-form teacher. Erwin pretends that he got a degree at Oxford, but he didn't. He went to a less prestigious school, and then went to Oxford for a teaching certificate. He lies to cover up his feelings of inadequacy and vulnerability. The culmination of this theme comes with the litany of the boys' accomplishments at the very end of the play. They all achieved their initial short-term dream of going to Oxford or Cambridge, but then went on to varying levels of success and happiness. One of the most notable biographies is Posner's. He ends up frustrated and alone, spending lots of time in the local library, living a shadow life online, and following his former classmates' successes from afar. The meaning of Posner's apparent failure is not entirely clear. He lives a rich life of the mind, but in poorer material and social circumstances. The play ultimately suggests that there is no way to live a life that is free of frustration, and that grand youthful hopes will always end in some degree of failure and compromise. The History Boys takes place at an all-boys school in England. It's a grammar school, meaning that students don't have to pay to attend, though they have to pass entrance exams, and the most prestigious schools in Britain are private schools, which primarily serve richer students. Erwin reminds the boys that they'll be competing against more privileged peers, like people who have traveled to Rome and can talk about that on the exam. Given their class background, the grammar school boys have a harder road to success. Rudge, in particular, comes from a working-class family. Throughout the play, people look down on him, condescend to him, and assume that he won't succeed. His father was a janitor, but he was a janitor at Oxford, and this fact ultimately helps Rudge get admitted. This is only the case, however, because Oxford apparently wants to make a show of progress by having the son of a janitor attend as an undergraduate. This situation helps illuminate the way that class figures in the play's overall argument about historical truth. Throughout history, socioeconomic status works in contradictory and sometimes random ways to affect the ways that events unfold. Class is mostly a hurdle for these boys on their journey, but at one crucial moment, Rudge's working-class background helps him. The play thus shows class as one of the invisible factors affecting history. Another of these invisible factors is gender. The play calls attention to the way that women are edged out of positions of power and erased from history, and it also dramatizes this fact in its own structure. There is only one female character who speaks in the play, Mrs. Lintott. The others, including Dakin's love interest, Fiona, exist only when men talk about them. Mrs. Lintott even notes partway through the play that she has not yet been given the chance to have her own internal life through narration. Later, she gives a memorable monologue about the role of women in history, arguing that history is women following behind with the bucket. Men take the lead and make the mistakes, and women clean up. She also says that men are better than women at skewing historical facts to suit whatever narrative they want. Mrs. Lintott's observations thus call attention to another way that history fails to be fully truthful. It often erases the experience of women.